We get her for a little more time. Carrie Oderman, she is a North Dakotan. We're going to make sure we say that first and foremost. Made her living in Kyiv as a TV anchor and journalist. And now, she with her family has had to leave to keep her children safe. And so we keep updates on what the attitude, knowing that she has a lot of friends in Kyiv.
This is also a big paradigm shift, I think, because Ukraine has once again proven that they aren't just a charity case, but they can be a real partner.
Mm-hmm.
How they created this concept, what they had to think about, and also what people that want to defend themselves from things like this need to consider. And the best way to do that is talk to someone that's on an attack like this. I think Ukraine has not only benefited from the fact that it destroyed about 40 bombers that were being used to attack civilians, it also reduced the nuclear potential of Russia by about 10%. You know, there's that holy trinity of nuclear potential. It's subs, it's silos, like we know too well in North Dakota, and it's these bombers. And by getting rid of those bombers, the nuclear threat from Russia, let's reduce some of that, not only for Ukraine, but for the whole world.
One of the individuals in my life said, "Oh man, now look what Putin's going to do to Ukraine." And my answer to that was, other than dropping a nuclear bomb, what hasn't he been doing to Ukraine? I mean, this whole notion that you win a war by just being afraid of the opponent and just counterpunching all the time. I love the fact they went on the attack. They went on the attack from so far away from where Ukraine is. I mean, they were deep into the heart of Russia. Carrie, how much do you hear from friends? I mean, you make friends wherever you go. What are you hearing from the people in Ukraine?
I hear a lot from them. I keep in contact. Ukrainians are making jokes, right? Are people still asking you how you're doing? I also work with a lot of Ukrainians, and you check the news and you go, oh, you had a rough night. And then it just goes back to business as usual, which I think is tough, but a lot of Ukrainians see work as something that normalizes their life. You know, you had mentioned before that people were concerned about Putin having revenge after the drone strikes. Mm-hmm. And my confirmation bias bubble, my people on Twitter and other social media networks, it was a nice night in Kyiv. A lot of them were sitting on balconies and they said, bring it, because what else can happen? They are getting hit regularly. So what would revenge look like? It's just another Sunday or Monday night for them.
Yeah. Great attitude. I mean, they're killing kids
and kidnapping them, Joel. I mean,
what we saw Ukraine
20,
take out was military aircraft. I mean, that's what we saw Ukraine take out. They're killing kids. And so I am so with it. I am proud to have that Ukrainian flag at the top of my driveway. I mean, when the Ukrainian president Zelensky was in the White House and he was sitting in a room, and I've been calling it this, Carrie. I promised we wouldn't delve into politics a lot. I mean, our backgrounds are different, but I'm just going to say this: he got double, triple teamed. I mean, he got slapped up by every American official in the room. What did you or the people around you think about that?
If you wanted to invest the time to fact check, I think someone did count how many times he said thank you in that room before he was accused of not saying thank you. Let me put it in this framework. Donald Trump and the Trump administration, they have a hard time being too hard on Russia and picking sides because of financial interests. And a lot of people and governments feel the same way. They think a broken Russia is not going to benefit the world. It was a bit of theater. And the reason I mention that is, who do you think gave Ukraine the intelligence where all these airfields were? And I'm saying the quiet part out loud now. If you look at the photos that Vasyl Malyuk, and he's head of the SBU, he was the mastermind of this whole drone launching plan, Spiderweb. Where do you think he got those pictures from that were laid out on the table? Ukraine doesn't have that type of satellite capacity. And I can't think of any other country that does other than the United States.
Well, but you have to also remember that if they got it and if they were working at it for a year and a half, that imagery came from the previous administration. And
that could be.
And this current administration didn't know, by their own admission, about the strikes before they happened. And that, to me, also says that they can't trust us to tell us.
I considered that angle. I did. But saying that the information wasn't shared is actually a safe space for everyone to be in that's involved, isn't it?
Yeah. And you're right about that. Carrie, while we've been talking, word's gotten out that Ukraine blew up Crimean Bridge, huge underwater explosion. All of that just happened. So, you know, they're on the offensive. Tell them how big of a deal it is to blow up this bridge.
This is a huge deal. This was a prestige project from Vladimir Putin. This was the connecting Russia to Crimea. And it was really what anchors Crimea to, I'll call it the Russian mainland. This is really interesting because there were arguments against blowing up the bridge because there are Russian civilians that have moved to Crimea since the annexation in 2014. And this was one of the most direct and quickest ways to get out of Crimea since the war, since the full-scale invasion in 2022. Russia has also created a land bridge connecting Crimea through Lugansk and the Donbass regions where they rolled in all the way to the river by Kherson. So there are ways to leave Crimea now, but the quickest way out of Dodge now is gone.
Yeah. Well, it's a 12-mile long structure connecting Russia with Crimean Peninsula. It was annexed in 2014, and as you pointed out, this was pride and joy. They blew up a pillar of it, which means they're not using the bridge. I recognize that, but blowing up a 12 miles worth of bridge is a whole nother thing. But it goes to my point a little bit earlier, Carrie, in our conversation, which is if they had drones in country to strike those long-range bombers, they have other drones in that country. Fair?
I think so. I think they've got other things up their sleeves. They might just really be capitalizing on momentum right now. It is hard to hit the Crimean Bridge, first of all, because it is a prestige project and those pillars have been well protected. And that means they must have had the equivalent of Ukrainian frogmen come up there and put the underwater explosives on the bridge. I had first, when you had first told me this in the break, when the news broke for us, had thought that maybe they had used one of the German tariffs, because the European countries now have officially said that you don't have to limit how far you shoot the weapons we give you. And the Taurus was one of the few missiles that was equipped to actually take out a pillar of the bridge. And taking out a pillar is a big thing. Yep. I mean, this alone would have been noteworthy. This in combination with the drone strike, it kind of makes you wonder what's next.
I love the fact that beyond infrastructure, beyond all of that, that a $600 drone, number one, the way you began this conversation by saying, look, we should all be afraid of what can happen that cheaply, that easily with the drone. And it's a wake-up call for all of us. But I love the fact that when Vladimir Putin goes to bed at night, he isn't just mad, he's scared. And I think that's what Ukraine is doing. They're putting him in a position where when he goes to bed at night, he's not just sitting there with a smug look, not caring about Russian lives, certainly not caring about Ukrainian lives, but like the Ukrainian people, he finally is going to bed scared. And I like that.
Yeah, there have been so many psyops involved with this war. It started with the first cheap drones in 2022 that sounded like mopeds, and it was just there to terrorize the people, not get much damage done. And I gotta point out a historical fact. In the early 1990s, Ukraine gave a bunch of these KH-55, these Kinzhal rockets, back to Russia. And they gave a bunch of these Tu-95 bombers back to Russia as part of the Budapest Memorandum. And then in 2022, Russia started using these rockets, which were the only rockets Russia had for their bombers that were equipped or had the capacity to carry nuclear warheads. So Russia would fire these rockets using these planes that Ukraine gave back at Ukraine, and Ukrainians, knowing the bomber type, knowing the rocket type, would never know, are they going to nuke us right now?
Mm-hmm.
And these Kinzhal rockets were used to distract and terrorize the people. And these Tu-95s and these Kinzhal rockets that are carried by them, this is also what was targeted with the drone strike.
Let me ask you, if you were in that room as a negotiator, you're in the room with Zelensky and Putin, where do you see the give? Where do you see the, hey, look, if you both agree to this, we can knock this off, we can shut it down?
Women don't get to be around a lot of these negotiating tables. And
which is wrong, I might add, as an advocate.
Yeah. So if I was sitting there, I would make it a human-centered negotiation. I would say priority number one is the 20,000 Ukrainian children that are missing. Because no one can really negotiate against that point. You can negotiate against lines on a map, or where you're going to have a mined zone, or you're going to have peacekeepers come, but no one's going to really say, no, you can only have 10,000 of those kids back. We'll give you 5,000 and then 5,000. That's how I'd start the negotiation. Because the most important thing is we've been able to establish in the past few months who the bad guy here really is. And if there was any doubt, it's events that have led up to, June 2025. It's clear that Vladimir Putin doesn't want to negotiate. There's evidence that over 20,000 Ukrainian children have been kidnapped, removed from their homes. And there's also recent evidence that gulags that were used in the time of Stalin have been reopened to process some of these kids in a re-education attempt. So that's the first thing I'd go for.
Let me just say this, though. Okay, go ahead, Carrie. Go ahead.
Oh, the next thing I was going to say is, I don't think it's a time for maximalist positions. I would not say I need Ukraine to be back at the borders of 1991. I think that's unrealistic.
Crimea is off the table.
As much as I have always wanted to visit Yalta, I may never do it. I think Crimea is off the table. I think Crimea is too important for Russia.
And it's about water.
It's about access to the Black Sea.
Yeah,
it is.
Exactly.
It's the only warm water port that they've got. It's really important for their economy, as it is for Ukraine's economy.
Which is, you say that we've already established who the bad guy is here. I'm not sure that that's true in your home country. I'm not. There are individuals out there that are spinning, that are trying, that are talking, that are in very public positions, able to use the media in very strong ways. And I'm not sure this administration hasn't made Zelensky out to be the bad person, using every tool they can, including one of the congressional leaders on the Republican side. Marjorie Taylor Greene has gone around and around and around in her high-profile way and blames Zelensky. I mean, she has. And so she, in many ways, has become the voice and the face of the GOP on a national scale. And so I think that there's a movement here in the United States to try to redefine Zelensky and Putin. And the ceasefire somewhat took some wind out of their sails. They thought they had a ceasefire. They don't have a ceasefire. In fact, it's stepped up times 20. And so I don't see a ceasefire happening certainly anytime soon after these attacks.
I don't see a ceasefire happening either. I don't see Ukraine being able to trust Russia, and it's got to, for Ukraine, people are its most important asset, and they're not going to agree to a ceasefire and risk more Ukrainian lives. Enough people have been killed.
Carrie, in the end, I mean, tell me, how is this going to end? If you had to predict, how are we going to get this war behind all of us?
I think the security structure in Europe has fundamentally changed. It fundamentally changed in February at the Munich Security Conference. Europe is scrambling right now. And to get this war to end, there's got to be some type of security guarantee. When the full-scale invasion started, there were troops that were also normally on the Finnish border with Russia, and they were pulled back. Now those troops are there again. The Finns aren't too alarmed, but there are changes happening within the whole European security structure. There are, I think, 500 German soldiers in Lithuania right now. That's never happened before in post-World War II. This cooperation is necessary, and also this European unity is necessary for this war to stop, because if Ukraine falls, and it's going to be Poland, and it's going to be the Baltics, the Finns have prepared, so they might be able to hold the line there. For the war to end, people have to stick together.
Nothing is going to come to a resolution until everything just stops for a while. It just has to stop for a while. And that's what I was promised. This is not just the political, but the factual side of Joel Heitkamp. I was promised that this war would be over and be over swiftly under a new administration. Then I was promised for a ceasefire, neither of which happened. And I don't ever want to see my country double teaming a man whose country has been attacked and war has been committed upon them like we did in the White House. So there, I feel better having said it. Carrie, always good to have you on. You wish your family well. We think of you often. Stay safe. You notice I never tell people where you're at because it's none of their business where you're at. So thank you for coming on News and Views. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.